Hello, everybody. My name is Mark, and welcome to today's webinar. I'll be presenting to you this afternoon. I am from Cheltenham in the UK. If you sort of go to London and turn left and go on for a couple of hours, you get to us. A very nice place too, although quite a warm place by our standards today. Okay, thank you very much for just popping in, saying where you're from. So I'm just going to bring a few of these up as I'm going. I've been a teacher for 34 years, and in all that time I think I've pretty much taught people from all over the world. So it's lovely to be saying hi to people from all over the world today as well, all over the world, as well as hello from Essex as well, which is great. Other side of London to us, and as we used to say, north of the river, which is very important when you lived in London, south or north of the river. Okay, then. So as you know, today we're going to be talking about level 5, assignment B. I always have it got annotated in my head to L5B. Just if somebody would like to just send a very quick message saying you can see me and hear me fine, and then we'll crack on at that point. While I'm waiting for somebody to do that, I'm just going to tell you a few little bits and pieces about this. First of all, presentation should be 30 minutes, 40 minutes. It depends how long I waffle on for. Please do remember anything that you ask. You are very, very welcome to ask anything you like. Please make it relevant only to this. If it's anything else, I will see it, but I won't bring it up, and I won't be discussing it today. So just related to today's topic. Anything else, as you probably know, as you should know, you can always ask by opening a ticket with tutor support. So enough said, and let's carry on. So this, I have to say, although obviously I love all our assignments equally, I'd say this one is actually my favorite. I suppose because I think it's the one that has the greatest relevance to your actual, or I always like to think that I can see the greatest relevance to your future teaching as well in this. So I think it's the one. They are all, of course, worth a great deal of trouble and a great deal of attention. You can't really say that one is, you could teach one, having learned one assignment, you could teach from that. But this, nevertheless, is for me is the baby. So just to go through that, as you can see, we'll be looking for what we're assessing, which is your ability to create a grammar lesson using the PPP form. PPP, as of course you know, presentation, practice, and production. All of which, of course, we'll be going through, and your understanding of MFP, the second acronym of the day, meaning, form, and pronunciation. And we'll also be looking at eliciting and concept checking. Eliciting and concept checking, they're all going to be linked into this idea that we're going to look at here is how do you get the students to come up with everything that you need, rather than doing what you would do otherwise, which is or kind of maybe what you call a traditional lesson of you stand there at the front, tell everybody what they need to know, they write down notes faithfully, and from there somehow or other by magic they can then produce the language that is expected of them. That's not how we work. If you've got as far as assignment B, you already know this, but this is the lesson that really drills at home how we empower the students, how we really make sure that they're the ones that are doing the work, and they're the ones that are moving forward. They're the ones that are moving forward from here. Okay, so I'm just trying to do something here. No, it's not going to work for me. Okay, can I just do something there? Right. Okay, so if I move on to this, as you can see, first conditional is what we're looking at. That's the first, and trust me, if you can get that far, you've already got over the first hurdle, because it does catch out a significant percentage of people who don't actually teach the first conditional. So once you've done that, once you're clear on that, then you're a long way already there by doing this. We got a lot of people in the basic mistakes that quite a few people make and waste an awful lot of work doing this as well, is teaching the present perfect, which we'll mention probably why they do that, or they fail to distinguish the first conditional from, say, the second conditional, and occasionally the zero, or even in some extreme cases, the third conditional. So just have a look at this. If it is hot tomorrow, I will go to the beach. Now, the reason that if and will are highlighted there is because we only want to use those. Yes, there are other conjunctions you can use. Other conjunctions are available as well as if, but remember the level of your students. You don't need unless, you don't need as soon as, and you don't even need when, which changes the meaning. Those are for a later lesson. Once they've got this, once this is part of their established language, what they already know, then you can move on and do other things with it. For the moment, we stick with if and will. That also makes your lives easier as well. All of this you need to research, of course. Now, we can talk about this a little bit. I'm just going to jump forward. Sorry, I've jumped forward far too far here. Meaning, form, and pronunciation. Remember that meaning is also synonymous with function. That is to say, why do we use it? In what circumstances do we use it? And also remember that you will need to think of a scenario in which to present it. So, as I said at the start, it's not about good morning, class. We're going to learn the first conditional. This concerns this particular function. You need to think of a scenario. I mean, the most common one that you would use for this, and fortunately, this is what most people do, is use future plans. So, what are you doing this weekend? And then, of course, you go into the first conditional as the idea of something as a possibility that is dependent on somebody or something or another action, which is obviously where you come up with the if clause and then the main clause. So the two together. Form, as you know, relates to structure. And that is the basic idea of if plus subject plus present simple, subject plus will plus infinitive. One very common mistake here, people forget about the subjects. Remember, you're looking at low-level students here. When you do the whole form, it's not enough just to go, if plus present simple plus future. Actually break all of those down as well. The pronunciation aspects, of course, your P in the MFP. Think about what particular words. I'll give you a hint here for free, which is the stress is not on if and will. These are the basic ones. If you were actually teaching to somebody, you might say, because you were trying to stress the specific parts of the first conditional, you might say, if it rains at the weekend, I will stay home. But actually, nobody speaks like that unless they're teaching it. So think about how it is commonly used. Think about the words that need stressing at this point. Also, think about the contractions. Do I say, I will stay home? Highly unlikely. You can actually, of course, because you may wish to say that you may wish to stress your insistence, but that is not common use. And common usage is what we're looking at. So I'll is what we're looking at here. Think about others that you can use within that as well. Okay. You'll have two documents, and it's worth having a look at. Obviously, within those, there'll be various things, but the first template is the basic assignment, what you need to fill in. The second template is the materials. And as you can see, and we'll go through all of these, the grammar table, PPP, the lesson plan, the teacher language, again, that's a real biggie, and the bibliography. And all of this will come on one document. The template for the materials is obviously freer for you to use. The reason that we separate out the materials is that we have a question of plagiarism, which I'll talk at the bottom. We're quite happy for you to use other people's materials to get something off the internet. That's what a teacher would do normally, rather than going through and burrowing through and trying to do everything themselves. they're going to source things off the internet. You're very welcome to do that, but that does mean that if you put the materials with your main document, it can bump up the plagiarism, and we need to keep the plagiarism below 30%. The materials, it doesn't matter what happens to the materials. You can have 100% plagiarism. That is not a problem, because we can see that you've actually just used stuff and you source stuff, and that's fine. Okay. However, the first template, the assignment, that needs to be below the 30% mark. Otherwise, we have to reject it, or ask you to make a further attempt, which is very time consuming for you, and it's not something we much want. It's not something we are in favor of doing. Also, remember that these come to you as Word documents, and they must be converted to PDF format once you've completed and once you're ready to upload. You'll get told that when you go through everything, but it's always worth mentioning. Again. Okay, so if we move down, so now we've got the documents that you need to download. So you can also find these other ones as well. So the model assignment, which is on a different form. Now, as I mentioned, often people submit in the wrong form, and we get the present perfect. And of course, the model that you can see as to how to do it is in the present perfect. For you, and I noticed it's stressed here, and it's stressed here because people make this mistake all the time, you have to do the first conditional. So it's a guide, but obviously you cannot you cannot copy it. If you think you're copying this, you're thinking you're probably doing the wrong thing. Okay, and of course it includes the assignment template. So you know, the grammar table, the PPP grammar table, the lesson plan, the bibliography, and the teacher language, which you'll see is broken into sections that we'll look at. There is also the materials template in there. Okay, so let's go through these. The grammar table as a summary of your lesson. Yeah, I suppose that's true. But above all, it's showing your knowledge of how everything works. So as you go through this, you'll see you have your own model sentence. It's also where you deal with the pronunciation and also the timeline, which we'll have a look at in a second. Make sure you fill in every category. Make sure, and this is something that people do quite often, is make sure that you've actually sort of either, if you're looking at the words that are stressed, make sure you underline them or put them in. Don't put them in a different color. That might not come up. Put them as bold or something like that. Make sure it's absolutely clear what words are being stressed in your sentences. Okay, that's always a big one. I think sometimes people do things that are slightly different, and then it doesn't work, and they doesn't come through when the markers see it, and then there we go. Then we've got issues. Also, for section 5, remember the timeline. The timeline cannot be overestimated in terms of its importance. This is what you need. I mean, they're very nice actually on this webinar by actually showing you an example. The mistakes that are commonly made with this are that people put the if clause in the present. Here you can see quite rightly the if clause is in the future. And although I would say probably more people put it in the present than actually put it in the future, if you have a quick think about it, if the weather is good, not if the weather is good now, because it doesn't need if. If instantly in the first conditional has to make a reference to the future because it's not certain, so it can't be about the now. If that sounds obvious to some of you, trust me, get on my side and you'll find how often people make that mistake. It's about any time between now and a future point, probably a near future point, but we don't know. Depends on the context. And obviously that means that the second part of that, I'll go to the beach, has to follow it because it has to act as a result. So you can see there's a couple of things that the timeline really, really illustrates for the students, which is why it's great to actually make mention of it in your teacher language in the concept checking, which is where it should come up, because you're showing, look, there are 2 actions in the future, not one in the present affecting one of the future. There are 2 actions. One action has to go after the other action. because it is a result of that. So one action is a cause of the other. So you're getting the whole idea of conditional, and it's made very clear here by the timeline. The timeline can do so much heavy lifting for you if you can illustrate the significance, and of course if you can create one that is correct in the first place. Okay, moving on. The lesson plan itself. Aims, objectives. This first part that you get with aims, objective, assumed knowledge, anticipated problems is important. The assumed knowledge is really an important one there, because of course it's saying things like they know the future simple. So in other words, you can save yourself the bother of teaching quite a lot, because it's already there, it's already understood that they know this, and therefore the first conditional is coming at a specific point where they're ready for it. They understand the present simple, they understand the future, and therefore they can go through the relationship between the two clauses. If you were having to teach the future simple, which some people try to do, you wouldn't need to do it you wouldn't be ready to teach, or they wouldn't be ready to learn they wouldn't be ready to learn the first conditional. Aimings, timings, interactions. Interactions are really good. Now this is do really think about this for every section of your lesson. And now I'm talking not just about for the assignment, I suppose I'm talking about as a teacher in general, that if you have an exercise, think about how it's going to work. How are they going to talk together? Are they, don't make everything come into you. The idea here is that you really try to make sure that you're handing it out to them in the same way. So you're handing it out, you two are working together, you two are working together, you two. Then, okay, you've got a certain, okay, you can compare your answers now. And a 4, they're coming up with the answers. They're learning off each other. They're correcting each other. They're checking meaning by talking with each other. So they know that they're saying something that's comprehensible because they're getting nods and they're getting different forms of resolutions from other people. Really important that you think about that. The timing as well. I have never, in my 34 years of teaching, ever, I think, managed to teach a lesson that stuck to the timing. So it's never something that you need to really make a big thing about. You need to have it in your mind, because what you do need to do, even if the individual sections don't quite run the way that you expect them to, you do nevertheless need to have to make sure that you achieve that aim within the lesson. That's the great thing that you need to do. As a less experienced teacher, I remember getting to the end of the presentation and missing out the practice and the productions, and only doing 1p out of the 3 within the time of the lesson, and then having to go back to it the next lesson. And that obviously is pretty disastrous for their learning, when they don't get the chance to use the language having had it presented to them. Okay, so I'm just going to jump on a little bit here. Do also notice that to do the aims, objectives, the stage aim, you'll see you've got columns in the stages for all of those things. Make sure you fill out every section. And again, it's a useful tip, you can always consult the model lesson plan if you need a reminder as to what bit goes where. It's a really useful thing to use. And you'll also see a space allocated for your paragraph explaining your choice of tasks, context, materials, etc. It has a word limit requirement, but if you can, actually think about your students. So think about where your students are from, what kind of students are they? Are they ones that love talking about the future? What things would be interesting to them based on their nationality, and try to base it on that, rather than just what I often get is this kind of bland sort of, oh yes, well I base this on the needs of a 14 to 16 years old. Was it 12 to 14? Sorry, old lesson group of students. Well, yeah, but say something a bit more about the students and about why this lesson is specific to them. That individualization carries you a long way once you start teaching. Okay, move on. So the stages of the lesson plan, the presentation, as you will see, as you probably already have, if you've got as far as looking at this one, you've got the table in there. The presentation, You don't need to complete that, and you don't need to complete that because that is what will come out in the teacher language, which is what we'll be looking at, next. The warmer is where you introduce the context. So I mentioned the scenario at the start. That's where you get them talking about their future plans, be it for the weekend, be it for going to university, the jobs that they want to do, before you come in with the condition as okay, I want to play football this weekend. Okay, what kind of weather's best for playing football? I want sunny weather, and then you start building and still building it in the teacher language. You'll then build that together to get them to produce the actual target language of, if it is sunny, I will play football, or whatever you choose. And it can depend very much on what they come back with as well. In the lesson itself, there'll be a certain amount of spontaneity, because you'll be, rather than maybe having a model sentence in your head, you might be listening to them in the class and think, okay, oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, that's weather dependent. Right, let's pick on that one. Okay, so and so. So what do you need in order to do this thing that you want to do at the weekend? Okay, moving on. The teacher language. Eliciting the target language. Now, the target language is synonymous with what I said, the model sentence, actually getting them to come up with a sentence. Again, going back to our original one, which I've now forgotten. If it is sunny, I will go. If there is good weather, if it is sunny, I will go to the beach. And that's what you're looking at. The biggest mistake, the most common mistake, is that people put the target language up front, and so you are not eliciting. Eliciting is the idea of getting them to come up with it. Because they don't know the target language, you will need a certain amount of input, and there's also always this balance between how much input that you can give in order to help them to come up with the target language itself. If every person in the class can just come up with a perfect model sentence, then clearly you're teaching the wrong thing, because they already know it. That's not going to happen. But there will be quite a lot of existing language in there. So in the dialogue that we want you to write, you're kind of maybe just dropping little bits in there. Maybe you sort of say, okay, so what do you need if you want to do this at the weekend? What's a little word you might use to say it's not certain? Maybe you need to give them if. That's a good possibility. And then, having given them if, that's give them an idea, isn't it? And then maybe you'll say, well, okay, right, what tense do you think this is going to be? That's a really good sentence, but you haven't quite got it right. That's well done. But okay, this one's in the future. So what will this be? I will go to the beach, etc., etc. And it might be the same for the present simple, that you need to, again, to get them to change that as well. Okay, so so if I move forward from here, as it says here, another way in the bullet point, get students to gradually piece together the model sentence, and just add little bits as you go. Don't, whatever you do, just say, right, the model sentence you're going to use is this. That is not elicitation. And that, for me, and for any other marker, is the real bit that separates you out in terms of, it's a really good assignment. You don't need to do this perfectly, but you really make an attempt to elicit, as opposed to thinking, I'm just going to give them the language. Whatever else you do, put that as your kind of dividing point. You really want to step over that line, because that's also the line. And there's so many students, even now, still tell me this, that when they come out of an educational situation, they are used to being spoken to. And that's not what we do here. We get them and we draw it out of them instead. We are guides. We are not didactic. We are not lecturers. Okay. The form, the next part. So after you've got the model sentence, the form, and as I mentioned to you before, this is as we said, the if plus subject plus tenses. And again, you use the model sentence. And then you're saying, okay, now, well done, you've come up with this. Let's get this up on the board. What does it start with? If. Okay, what comes after if? So what is I? It's no point in just saying I, because that's the model sentence itself. What's the part of speech here? What sort of word is it? And of course, you're looking for the word subject. And of course, I mentioned that the biggest error that people make is they just go if plus present simple plus future simple. Think about what they can do. If you've also, don't just go future simple. Will. What follows will? It's not just the verb. Verb can be in any form at all. We need more than that. Of course, it's the infinitive or base verb or whatever you like to get, but get it the idea that it's a specific form of the verb. Just saying verb is not enough. Label it. Get it up on the board and label it as you go, so that they can note this down. And this is the case throughout. Grade your language. Use only vocabulary and grammar that your students already know. The more you put it out there, then the more you reduce your TTT. Third and possibly final acronym of the day, your teacher talking time, which again is probably one you've become familiar with, overly familiar with already. Okay, so now we've got the elicitation of the model sentence, the target language. We have had the elicitation of the form. Now the third one is the concept checking. Okay, and the concept checking relates to the meaning, and it relates to two events, which are both likely. The second event, depending on the first event, and we check the understanding of this. So again, you're asking simple questions, you want simple answers back, and that shows that everybody understands. One of the great things about concept checking is that if you do it well, you're finding out who knows. So you're asking a question. It's not just the clever clogs who knew it anyway who can get the answers. That's only concept checking that one particular person. You can ask. You're saying, okay, so and so, what do you think? What's it? What's this? What's the answer here? And so you're getting to those quiet people as well. You're really understanding if the whole class is following you here, rather than just, rather than just one or two of the stronger students. At this point, given the level of your class, make sure that these questions are simple, they're graded, as should everything be, and closed. So yes, 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 and no. Later on, of course, you can ask more open ones. Keep them focused on the function and use the same sentence that you elicited earlier. Okay. Right. For the materials, as I mentioned before, this should be a separate document. Include your actual materials. Okay to copy, paste them. Screenshot is fine. Links go in the bibliography along with a full explanation of where you have located this. That's absolutely fine. As I mentioned, it's perfectly okay to source things from the internet, but this is an academic document, and as an academic document, the understanding is that we should be able to follow it through and see where it comes from and where the credit is given. That's why you can't just have a link. A link does not accredit the producer of that material. So yes, we need the link so we can see, so we can locate it, but we also need a full accreditation, a full reference at this point. Okay. And that's what we mean by referencing the material as well. By referencing, we're saying where we've got it from. Okay. And the bibliography, as I've pretty much said, do make sure that you have a look. Referencing can differ from institution to institution, and you'll find that possibly you've done a lot of referencing if you just come out of university, or if you're still at university, you might find that you've got a specific format to follow. So make sure that you follow the one that is requested of you. It's a crying shame when when somebody's done something all right, everything is correct, and then they've fallen short of the bibliography. That's obviously not what we want to. That's not what we want to happen. So get that one as good as you can. Now I am going to just go on to the last slide now. But before I do that, I will also mention again, I'm looking for questions. So obviously you can start writing your questions now. I will do my best to ignore them for the moment and then deal with them at the end. But we are coming towards the end. So I'm going to do a couple of things with you. One is I will put up SurveyMonkey so you can have a look at that. But the second one is that I'm going to ask you for questions as well. And questions are the most fun. They're the ones that keep me on my toes as well. So the the more the better. Okay, so last one here, copy leaks. Now this goes, as you will see, when you submit, you'll see that you have both AI and plagiarism, and you have to go underneath 30% for both of these. If it's coming up and you can't see why you're getting this, when you know that your work has been produced honestly and decently, then please contact tutor support. Apart from that, really, there shouldn't be any problems. As I said, materials themselves can be separate, which means that there shouldn't be any great problems with this. Okay, so I think that is it. So I'm more or less going to be quiet now and wait on for any questions. As you can see, I'm just pointing this one out. Thank you, Gloria, for the first question. I'll deal with that in a second. So as you can see here, please do look. If you haven't followed too many of them, they're all there, and they're really, really useful. So do have a look at these. Question A section, which is what we're question and answer, which is what we're going for now. And I'm just going to bring you up that, and I'm going to leave that up for a little while, because please take the QR code, and then if you'd like to fill in either now or after the webinar is over. Okay, this is a really good question here from Gloria. A sample warmer aim. I don't know what to put on the warmer aim place. The warmer aim is there's a nice bit of technical speak for this jargon: activating schemata, finding out what you already know. This is the point at which you get them interested. This is your hook, and so the hook is going to be the scenario that you're talking about. So again, being the first conditional, you might say, you might talk about what you're going to do at the weekend, imaginary or otherwise. And then you might even talk about, right, but I've got a problem here. What if it rains? So you've got some great ideas. You're going to go for a picnic with the family or something like that. However, and so you can get them to already start thinking about it. Now, the idea at this point is that they're going to start thinking about something, but they do not necessarily have the language to express it. So that's the thing about creating a need, that they actually want to say, okay, well, I want to do this, but this might happen, and okay, but this is dependent on that, and they don't know this language. But they can obviously they can view the idea. So that's what you're looking for here. You're creating the need for them to use the language at this point by coming in with your scenario, be it about you or whether you just put it out to them. You decide what is best. I would say for the model sentence, I would always go for an example that they have come up with. So even if you talk about yourself and your own weekend plans or your hopes for the future or something like that, nevertheless, put it out to them, get them talking together, and then and then take something that they have created. So okay, so that would be the warmer. That would be the warmer aim. So the aim is to get them interested in the function, and then obviously say in the warmer, also talk a little bit about what you will do. Just mention how you're going to introduce this particular part. Okay, Ira, can I use a photo taken from my phone as a material? That's absolutely fine. Again, if it's a screenshot or something like that, you would still have to use, if it's online material, you still need to give it the full reference. However you produce it, however, on the document that you're going to send to us, we're not too worried about that, but you do need to accredit it. I would not do this. I would do this for the materials. That's fine. I would not do this for in the main template. because for it, because then obviously there's the risk of plagiarism coming up in there. So absolutely fine if you if there's something, if it's just more convenient for you to take a photo of say a controlled document, a gap fill or something like that. But don't do that. Don't do that in the main template. Don't do that for the teacher language, because obviously that's going to set alarm bells ringing that you've just pinched that off somebody else, which I'm sure is not the case. But obviously we need to show honesty as well. Okay, right, let's have a look at this one. Presentation. It's the section about our lesson. Now there's two forms here, either, my apologies. There's two parts of the presentation. There's the presentation in the lesson plan, and in the lesson plan it just says don't bother about that. You'll see it's actually sort of slightly blanked out, so that part can be incomplete. You don't need to fill it in at all. When I say incomplete, it simply doesn't need any filling in at all, because the presentation is the part that will be taken up in the teacher language, and the presentation is the three parts in the teacher language: the elicitation of the model sentence, the elicitation of the form, and the concept checking. So these three parts are all dealt with in detail. The first two parts as dialogues, and the third one, the concept question. You can do the concept questions as a dialogue, or you can simply ask two, or preferably more questions as is demanded. Any of those would be fine. Okay. Right. Okay. Sorry, I shouldn't have clicked on that one. My apologies. Again, that's not specific to this. So again, just so everybody knows, any questions like this, that's a good question. Speak to tutor support about it, and then that will be absolutely fine. Okay. Yes, you can take you can take a photo from any book for material. That will be fine to do so. Again, material is the word here. Material, photo, that's great. And from a book, that's by far the best way. It's better than you spending 2 hours trying to format it to get something that looks similar to what you need. Okay. Right then. Okay. Any other? I'm just having a look down to see if there are any other questions. Right. Okay. Yeah. Good question. Yeah, it's really nice for somebody to make a timeline themselves. And then what's nice about making a timeline yourself is that you can actually add your own. You can make your own. Sorry, I'm losing my words here. You can refer it to your specific model sentence that you are creating in the lesson. So making your own timeline is brilliant. There's lots of them online, and be cautious as well, because sometimes online, surprise, surprise, the internet is not always right. You can get some pretty bad ones as well online. You can get some ones that are just straight down the line incorrect. So don't trust anything off the internet just because it's on a screen. So making your own is a really nice idea, and it's obviously we like to see the effort that you've put into it. And do remember as well, anything that you're doing here for an assignment is never just going to stay as an assignment. This is something that, if you get anywhere as a teacher, and I sincerely hope you do, you're going to be teaching as well. So anything that you create like that, it's never wasted. It's there for use in the future, and that's a great thing. Hopefully, whatever work you do here is something that will pay dividends, both in the general form of teaching grammar, but also in the specific of teaching the first conditional in the future. So I think that's a good reason to apply yourself. Okay. If you take a gap fill activity from a website and don't mention it it would count as plagiarism there. If there is any reason why you cannot locate it, I would just put in a note, and we'll probably be okay with that. But yes, it's certainly very much best practice to make sure that you follow the referencing as well as you can. Sometimes you've got something that you've seen on a piece of paper, you might have even printed it off on a piece of paper a couple of years back for another reason, and then you've no idea what the website was that you took it off in the first place, and then you think, oh blimey, do I use that? Personally, I'd say, yeah, just go ahead and use it, and just put in a note to say, yeah, I'm sorry, this has happened, and but make sure everything else, if it's just a one-off, that's absolutely fine. If all of your materials or all of your references are insufficient, then we will ask you to resubmit. If there's a little bit of a question mark over one of them, well, that you should be okay. Okay. Any other questions for the moment? Okay, well, I'll be here for another 30 seconds if anybody wants to pop anything, but otherwise, thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure talking to you all today. You are my last task before I go on holiday. So I'm going to switch off fairly shortly with a huge sigh of contentment and go and pick some apples in the garden. Still happy to stay here if anybody's got any other questions, however, but I'm just going to hang on for another few seconds, and if nothing comes through, then that's absolutely fine. Do remember, if there's anything that you think about that you would like to ask afterwards, tutor support is there to help you. Okay, thank you all very much, and have a lovely rest of day, whether that be quite a lot of day or just a few hours of day, depending on where you are in the world. Okay, many thanks. Take care. Goodbye.